This is Eat, Sleep, Invest, the marketing podcast for real estate investors to get more deals. Hey, welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Eat, Sleep, and Invest. I'm your host, Brian Driscoll. I'm here with Paul Campo. What's going on, Paul?
What's going on, Brian? Appreciate you having me on, man.
Thanks for coming on. Yes, and today I'm pretty pumped about talking with you. What we're going to be talking about is copy, like copywriting, emails, text, things like that. So, Paul, give everyone a little bit of background on what you do.
Yeah, so day in, day out, my trade is a copywriter. Been in the real estate niche for 6 years. I've been an investor myself, wholesaler when I first started. You know, the whole routine, the whole quote epic story of Rich Dad Poor Dad. You know, you read the Rich Dad Poor Dad book, you dive into the rabbit hole of bigger pockets and all that, and you start direct mail, you start wholesaling. So I did all that back in 2015. Transitioned into mobile home flipping in leased parks. That was kind of a big thing in Southern California back when I was there. It was a great way to just earn cash flow very easily. So did that for a bit. Hated rehabbing those things. Saw some potential in land flipping, so I dived into that as well. Had a volume business in raw land flipping. While doing all this, I was also had a little side hustle of copywriting. I started off as a copywriter for Carrot for a bit, and taking on different clients. Took a big land developer back in the day who was selling Vegas property and different things like that. So today, mainly my main bread and butter today is copywriting. You'll see me in Ballpoint Marketing, Call Porter, Ryan Dossie. Those are my main businesses I work with today, and then plus my other business, REIOmnidrip.com. So that's what I do today, day in, day out, writing copy, writing emails, writing sales letters, and investing as well myself. More of a passive investor today. So.
Yeah, and that's really interesting too, because most copy guys, same even with digital marketers, like most people don't understand the motivated seller space when they're writing and advertising and things like that. And it's very important to know, okay, what's a motivated seller versus someone that just wants to sell their house.
Right. Yeah. And there's not a whole, you won't find a whole lot of copywriters that function in like the motivated seller space, right? Like there's one guy I can think of, Aaron Haas, I think his name is, like his brand is the REI copywriter, I think, REIcopywriter.com, I think. So he does do work, but there's not a whole lot because it just doesn't pay well compared to, like, if you go to the financial niche or the health niche, you can make a killing as a great copywriter there. I stuck to it just because I was in the world of investing for a while, and it just opportunities came about. So I never got out of it yet. So I just been into it, and there's not a whole lot of people that I know of. I only know one person who understands the whole motivated market, seller market, and knowing the nuances of that, knowing what's the benefits and features that we offer as investors to sellers, what's the solutions, what's their problems, their pain points, etc. Those are all things that come into the copy of the off-market investors. So,
yeah, and okay, so for anybody listening, explain to them what copy and copywriting is, just like a short version.
Yeah,
because some people might not even be doing drips or anything right now.
Right. So the definition of copywriting, I'm going to give you like a very coined type of definition that a lot of people probably heard. It's salesmanship in print. That's a very common way people a term cliche that people use. But it's crafting your words to have a goal. You have a goal in mind. Every time you're writing an email, you're writing a text message, you're writing a direct mail piece, you have a goal in mind. And that goal also, those words have to cut skepticism, have to cut through objections at the same time. Have to build up credibility, your reputation, your authority. The value you bring has to build value for your offer as well. These are all things that we do face to face with a seller. When you're face to face with a seller, you're not just handing them the offer and that's it. You're building that offer up by telling them what you do, what that offer brings to the table. It's no commission. They can sell with all their junk behind. They can sell in 30 days, right, opposed to the 60 days on market. You can lock in a price. You have a real buyer today. All these little benefits that we as investors communicate. That's communicated into copy on the investing side. So drips. You mentioned drips. That's what we do in my company, OmniDrip. That's where most of my, I guess, work has gone into, is building out drip follow-up marketing for people. There are investors that come to have me write like a lead generation letter. I don't do a lot of that because lead generation letters are pretty simple. We've tested out like long form sales letters to go out to people, and the short form so far has worked the best. Although, testing is kind of an animal that you're in digital marketing space. You understand testing. You need a whole lot of volume to get statistically significant results. So, but anyway, I'm going on a tangent here. I've done lead gen stuff, but short always works best. In what I've seen, in my opinion, so far. Because in lead generation, you're not trying to persuade anybody to sell. You're just looking for somebody that is selling today to raise their hand and say, yes, I'm interested in a cash offer. You get that lead into your system, and that's where the conversion comes in. That's where the copy comes in. That's where the salesmanship comes in, where you have to nurture that lead and turn them into a deal. Because, there are those hair on fire sellers that needed to sell yesterday. You don't need any kind of convincing. You don't need any kind of just months and months of trying to turn them. If they sell with you the next day. But that's rare. Most of the time we're dealing with sellers that are selling 1 month, 2 months, or even 12 months, or even 2 years later down the road because there's got other issues going on. So, so that's what we do. I build out drip follow-up system using copy-driven principles, using marketing principles as well, not just copy, but marketing principles of different event-based triggers. And we can go on to the details about how we build out follow-up if you want, or whatever you want.
Sure. Yeah, because this is really interesting because I deal with a lot of investors on the front end. We get the traffic to the website and we get the lead. And I know a lot of people, number one, with digital leads, you got to be on them super fast, right? To even get them on the phone. But you're right. A lot of people aren't ready. Like, they're browsing online, how to sell my house fast, things like that. They come to your website, fill out a form. They might have inherited a property. They have siblings they need to deal with. People call them a couple times and then call it a dead lead. Like what do you see the average? I don't know if you have this data. What do you see the average from time to lead to like when someone actually converts through drips?
I don't have that data because it's just, from one person to the next, it's completely different, and it's the drips don't. I'd say the drips don't do the converting for you. It's the in-house, the organization, how they function is the most important aspect of all that, right? So the drips are going to help cut the manual follow-up that you need. It's going to make sure that leads are organized. That's the biggest thing right there, or organization with your leads that come in, because people have they'll keep things into like 3 buckets: hot, cold, warm bucket, right? That's an old folder system back in the day before there was anything digital, which is a great way to keep things organized when you don't have anything digital. But you tend to forget what leads go where, what happened to this lead, and then you don't have a organized system of following up. Back in the day before digital, it was just on a calendar system. It's the first of the month. Let me pull out this bucket and go through every lead here. Okay, that's a lot of that's just a lot of manual work today. When we have the technology, we have the tools to do a lot of the selling, a lot of the follow up for us. I'm not an advocate of completely automating everything. I've been down that road, trying to automate 100% everything. You'll end up with a rat's nest of just a mess of things. But I am a proponent of automating some things, but making sure somebody is in the CRM every single day, looking at the leads, organizing the leads, making sure they're dropped into the right buckets so that the system is sending them the right messages, the right emails, the right tasks. So as far as your question is for what is the time, it all depends on within the organization, right? I mean, depends on their market, depends on days on market of their market. It depends on their offer of itself. Some people have higher cash offers than others, so they convert a little bit faster. So so I don't have that type of data. You need like thousands and thousands of data for that.
Let's talk about the bucket. So you're saying, like most people, they have hot, medium, cold, or hot, warm, cold, stuff like that. What type of buckets are you seeing in this space that people should have?
So some that are on top of my mind right now is, and people can get a sample of this if they go to my site, is, and you've seen this, signed with someone else. So I use that bucket for when, it happens all the time. They sign with a different investor because that other investor has had a better cash offer. But 30%, maybe even higher than that, those deals are going to fall apart. Either the investor, most of the time it's because the investor doesn't perform, the competing investor doesn't perform, or they have other title issues that the investor doesn't know how to solve. So that is a perfect example of just, you set them into that sequence, into that bucket, and you let it do its work so that you're top of mind still, and you're still building value, you're still building credibility. And so that when that 60-day mark, whatever it is, 60-day mark hits, and they underperform, the competing investor underperforms, you're right there to pick up the scrap off that. So it's a very simple sequence. It's not a very long sequence because obviously, like we're talking about, time and escrow. But some other ones are I like to segment a little bit. So what I mean by that is, people tend to think that I do sequences or buckets based off of situations, and I don't do that. I don't do except for one exception, which is foreclosure. But I don't do hey, this is your tax defaulted bucket. This is your bankruptcy bucket. I don't do any of that. Instead, I like to segment via lead type or seller type. So we have three. We have landlord, we have vacant house, and we have owner occupant. The reason why I do that is because no matter if the landlord is going through bankruptcy or foreclosure or any of those other situations, they're going to have pretty much kind of the same pain points. But those pain points of a landlord with tenants in the house is going to be far different than a vacant house lead. It's going to be far different than an owner occupant. So I can leverage those pain points in the message. I only have so many messages to put into the bucket. So I want to make sure that those messages are that I'm hitting the solutions for that specific lead type, that I'm hitting the pain points for that specific lead, that I'm giving value for that particular lead's world. So a vacant house, their problems is they're dealing with a deteriorating house. They're dealing with potential squatters going into their house. They're dealing with a house that won't qualify for a loan. So those little pain points there, and the solutions that we bring to those pain points, it doesn't ring a bell with the landlord, right? So that's one of the ways I do it. People love it. It's been working great for people. Don't have data on what's the conversion rate. Like I said, conversion rate is so different depending on organization to organization. But yeah, I mean that's how we do it in e-commerce. I do copywriting e-commerce. We segment. Segmentation is a big moneymaker in any industry, in any business out there. We segment so that we can tailor the message very specific to that person. Sending the right message to the right person at the right time. That's the whole Dan Kennedy trifecta. And I employ that into the drip follow-ups that we do for investors.
Yeah, and you're right too. So let's talk about the value. So most drips that I see from investors, it's day 1, hey, how quick do you want to sell? Day 3, are you still selling? Day 6, hey, I just wanted to touch base to see, are you still looking to sell? And they just keep basically spamming. And you're talking about giving value and staying in front of them. What's the difference there? What are you talking about?
Right. So yeah, there's two things that we can do with that. So that is a big problem. They don't know what to say besides, are you still interested in selling, and the variations of that, right? Simple questions are important. I do have simple questions like that, sprinkled in there because they kind of drive a response. The famous 9-word email that I forgot his name already. But little simple stuff like that I employ as well. But there's two things I do instead. We don't want to just bombard them with simple questions all the time. One is feature or benefit driven copy. So here's what I mean. A lot of investors, they assume like a cash offer, like you give a cash offer to somebody and you tell them cash offer and they know exactly what that means. Well, cash offer is a feature that we give as investors. It's not a benefit. What does that cash offer mean for the actual seller? One of the best exercises that an old school investor told me to do is sit down and write up to 50 different ways that I can benefit a seller. And that was an amazing exercise for me. For one, it boosted my confidence in what I can actually do. But then now you have talking points, right? Now we have different solutions that we can give to a seller. Cash offer, like I said, it's just a feature. It doesn't really mean anything. So for instance, I may send out a text or some form of text that says hey John, this is Tim again, letting you know that we're still interested in buying your house, and you can leave all your unwanted things behind. Call me so we can lock in your price. So in that little text message, I have one feature in there, or one benefit, that you can leave all your unwanted things behind. So in each message, I have a list of about a dozen or so benefits that we can give as investors. So each message, I try to employ one, sometimes just two, but I try to keep it as low as possible. So one benefit in each text message to remind them what we can do for them. And what I choose depends on what bucket they're in, right? What lead bucket they're in or what event bucket they're in. But that's one way. It's making sure that we're reminding them of the benefits that we can bring to the table to them. So we take for granted that we think that the seller assumes what the value that we bring, but we need to keep reminding them of the value that we bring. The other thing that I do very early on in buckets and sequences, and you're gonna like this because it has a lot to do with digital, is I try to sell the click in some messages. I don't do it very often, but so if I have a sequence called offer too low, fixing themselves. So this is a bucket when you present the offer and they tell you know what, I'm just going to fix the house myself so I can get full value on the MLS. Okay, great. You drop them in that sequence. All the messages are tailored towards the pain points of fixing themselves. But early on in that sequence, I do have an article I send out. Like I send it right in the text message. I try to, the term in marketing and copywriting is selling the click. I try to sell the click, which is an article on, I think it's 5 points or 5 items that give you more money for your rehab items, or five items that give you the most money, I think it is. Well, the goal of that is for them to get on the click, to get on the website. And when they do that, you've heard the whole phrase, the whole philosophy that it takes multiple touches to win a deal, to win a lead. They used to say 7. Now it's a lot more than that. They from data, they understand it's like 13, 20, depends on each market. But I am trying to employ more touches for the investor, for more touches for that seller. So that when they get the text message, that's one touch, right? Then if they click, that's 2 touches. And then if you're doing what you do for your investors, which is doing retargeting, remarketing ads, now you've moved them over also into your retargeting audience. So now you can employ even 3 more, 4 more, 5 more, 10 more touches if you're putting up those digital ads. So I put that very early on. So we can start stacking on touches. So does that make sense, Brian?
Yeah, it does. And that's awesome too, because most people with text never branch it into the digital side. And especially like with attribution, things like that too, you can always put tracking codes and everything in there too to watch the whole thing unfold.
Yeah.
Like there, and then that's so true too, because once they hit digital, you can retarget them with testimonials and things like that. And they don't know how. They think it's because Facebook, they're talking in front of their cell phone or whatever, you know.
Right.
But right.
Yeah. So with those, so follow up is not, a lot of people come in the investing world think that the follow up marketing is purely the goal is response, and it's because of all the different online assets that we have, and all the skepticism we have to break down and the credibility we have to bring up in ourselves. The follow-up marketing has multiple goals. It's not just to get a response for that one message you sent out. My goal, whether it's from real estate, whether it's in e-commerce, whether it's a print shop, when I email, when we do text messages, the goal of following up, quote, following up is to build credibility, build value, make us the expert in the subject, so that when they are ready, it's no brainer choice for them. They're going to go with the guy that's built the value, built the credibility, has been top of mind, has shown them testimony. That's a big thing that we employ. I've only worked with clients that have testimonials, because they're a lot easier to work with, because hey, I can create a text message for them that drives we use testimonials a lot, that drives them to a Google review page, drives them to their website that has testimonials, or their Facebook page or the YouTube page that has testimonials in there. Or we would just copy and paste some of their testimonials into their emails, because I'm, again, driving the social proof for them. Like, proof is a big thing in copywriting. Gary Bencivenga, who like people consider the number one copywriter still living, he that was like his big methodology. He would it was all about proof. What kind of proof can I install into whatever I'm writing? And that's a podcast of itself about proof. But just take my word that proof is a big thing when we create the drip follow up, and we want to make sure that we're putting in social proof, but proof that we are a real buyer, that we're the real thing, that we're not some scammy con artist. So so that's kind of the gist of it right there.
Yeah, and you're so right there too, because so you were talking before about benefits, and then the proof. Like, for example, if you can write out 50 benefits, right? You don't know which benefit is interesting, or the particular seller is going to hit, so you just keep sprinkling them in, because one person just inherited a home that's a hoarder house, and leaving everything behind is great. The other person just might not want to list it on the market and have their neighbors coming through the house. So if you sprinkle all those different things in over time, one of them is usually going to connect. And then the testimonials build your credibility.
Right. Exactly. So that you nailed it right there. You don't know exactly what the benefit is going to be. If your lead manager is in the CRM and they're writing notes, you have those notes in there, so that when you do a manual follow-up, you can touch on the bigger drivers when you're face-to-face or phone call to phone call, which I have tasked for manual follow-up inside of our drips. That's extremely important. But when you can't be texting your 100 leads every month, and going into your CRM and, okay, this is their main driver, let's figure out a text message for this person. Each and every time, you'll pull your hair out. You'll have to hire an army to do this for you. But I've narrowed it down to about a dozen benefits that we can sprinkle in there that kind of hit a generalized public. And then I've broken it out to several sequences or buckets where certain benefits makes more sense in this bucket. So, and another thing about this bucket system is, before I forget, there's different call to action. So call to action is a big thing in copy. So we're asking them to take action. The action could be almost 90% of the time. Sometimes I just have a nurture text message. But most of the time, I'm trying to drive an action too. That action could be a simple response. The action could be to drive the click, to sell the click. But in either case, there's an action. Some of these buckets have a different action than others. So missed appointment. That's a common thing that happens. The seller misses the appointment. That there's a bucket for that. Well, the call to action is always going to be in there. Is always going to be, let's reschedule. So and the curiosity, what's going to drive them to get the appointment is what their cash offer is going to be, right? That's the biggest curiosity element that I put in that bucket. I hope that all makes sense. I kind of went on tangent there. We started talking about one thing and I started talking about another thing. So
No, that's good too, because because missed appointment's a huge one. Like in our business, like even a motivated lead, same thing. Like you have people, stuff pops up, they miss their appointment. You need to get back in front of them and try to get, and that's one bucket. You don't want to give them a message that's something totally different. It just doesn't make sense.
Right. And yeah, that's another thing too, is I try to keep things agnostic, meaning, that's some feedback I've gotten from my clients is that it's agnostic, meaning, it doesn't collide with the conversations they're having with people. So that's a couple, there's two, philosophies within that I try to inject into drip follow-up marketing. And that's one, keeping everything personable or personality driven copy. So the problem, this is probably the biggest tip right now, if nobody follows any kind of this advice, which the simplest advice that they should follow is whatever they're writing, whether it be just a simple email to say an attorney, whatever it is, it can be it's really anybody. When you're writing, make sure that you don't sound like you're from the HR department. That's like the biggest, simplest tip that I give to investors, because investors can sound like, they can sound cold. They can sound like again, they're trying to be very, very professional. You don't have to come across that way. Actually, professional copywriters never come across that way, no matter what their audience is. I've seen sales letters written to CEOs, CFOs, where it's kind of obnoxious, high performing sales letters. I should get that caveat on there. High performing, high converting sales letters written to CFOs that sound like Joe Schmo from down the street. And so that's the number one tip I can say for anybody is make sure you have like personality inside of the copy. It's not about sounding professional. You're not going to win them over with sellers or people. And people like seeing others that are on the same playing level as them. They don't like to feel like the person is on a taller tier than them. That's why people put up barriers. If a salesman shows up in a $200,000 car, has a $10,000 suit, has a $10,000 watch, shows up, they're going to put barriers because that person is already stepping into the playing field as somebody who is 2-3 tiers above them, a pedestal that's way above that person. It makes that person feel very uncomfortable. People like doing business with people that are like-minded, that are in the same playing field as them. So I try to, that's the philosophy I put in just about every copy that I write for any client, for any industry, any business.
Yeah, and that's so true too, because we even see that online too. A lot of the people, they try making these real professional looking websites that look like big banks, things like that. And it's the same thing. People want to sell to the local guy down the street that looks reputable, that's not going to pound them. They're looking for that real person.
That's a good point that you mentioned. There's a famous copywriter by the name of Eugene Schwartz. He's long gone. He used to test this out all the time with, this is in the mail order business. This is before digital, but test out ugly direct mail pieces versus like beautifully designed mail pieces. And the ugly ones won every single time by a huge margin too. I'm not saying now to go design your site to look like it's from the old, the old browsers, but blocky and all that. But I think design, to keep in mind that, like you said, people want to make sure they're doing, especially if you're in a market that really takes being local with a high value. There's certain markets that don't really care, but there's other markets that rather do business with somebody that's local. Then you want to make sure you have that. Like, if you look at it, does it look like it came from somebody? I'm in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Does it look like somebody that came from Coeur d'Alene out? Or does it look like it's a national buyer? So if you come in as a national buyer, most of the folks here, they're going to ignore you.
Yeah. It's funny you bring that up too. I did a test, not necessarily a test. I thought it was going to work. I used to send mailers, and I'd always send yellow letters, and they worked pretty well, like the handwritten looking ones. And then I'm like, you know what? We're going to make a fancy postcard. It looked awesome. Like this thing looked fancy. It was the school colors, matched everything. I sent 5,000 pieces, and I got 0 calls. It was like that's a lot of freaking money to go out. I literally got 0 phone calls in this. I'm like, this doesn't make it, and it does make sense. It looked like a profession, looked like kind of like something the bank would send you.
Right, yeah. And that's why the handwritten letters, the whole handwritten thing, the real handwritten pen robot things has been growing in the investing world. Been getting better response. The important thing is, what's the cost of all that? What's the ROI of all that? And so, I mean, I'm involved with Ballpoint, which is a handwritten direct mail company. And so, yeah, so I get to see the data on that side, but typically, yeah, the cost, the ROI is the cost is much lower than sending the cheap stuff. So,
right, well, that's cool, man. So, tell everyone where they can. Number one, if they wanted to work with you, how that works and where they can get a hold of you.
Sure. So, they can just go to reiomnidrip.com. And I got samples for them in there. They subscribe. They can see what I do. They'll see emails coming from me. They'll see articles written by me. They have to subscribe to get the samples. Some people they want to know price. They want to know. They want all the details without even subscribing, without having their contact information given to me. That's all I request at first. I'm trying to build value first, right? When we're talking about value, cash. A lot of people, we can't just give a cash offer to somebody and without building value. You've got to build value first before we present price. So they can get samples there of what I do. They can get they'll get 2 free sequences that they can implement immediately. They'll get a demo video of the whole philosophy so that they can, if they want to do it themselves, they can do it themselves. So yeah, that's where they go. reiomnidrip.com.
Yeah, guys, go on there too, because I actually went on there and subscribed, and Paul's literally sending you 2 full drips for some of those buckets we were talking about. And they're really good, like things you can implement. And then Paul, they can hire you and pay you for like what comes with your service, because you offer like a turnkey service pretty much on these.
It's turnkey, yeah. So it is custom. We have hundreds of variations of different messages, all in a bank. So that means I don't have to. I did it this way so we can scale myself and keep things very affordable for people, so that we can go in there. We're going to ask questions. We have a questionnaire for you so that we can build custom, pull the right messages for you that fit your business. We're going to get all that all together. We're going to put in the merge fields, the merge data that's relevant to you, relevant to the CRM you use. And then we're going to go into your CRM. We're going to actually install it into your CRM for you. And we have an NDA for those who don't feel comfortable with me being in their CRM. We have an NDA for you. And then it's ready to use. After 2 weeks, you'll have a full drip follow-up system with hundreds of messages and instructional videos on how to use all that, so you can start, stop losing leads due to bad follow-up. So
that's huge too, because especially anyone listening that has a weak or no follow-up system, like one deal's like this is gonna change your business. Like if you don't have this in place, number one deal is going to pay more than Paul's going to charge you to do it. And you're only doing it once. You set it up once and it works forever.
Right. Yeah. Like that's a big point. I mean, I have reviews there, testimonials from people who have gained deals off of it, and you'll see on my website. If you pay $1,000 for somebody to put on a drip follow-up system for you, then and that saves you a $10,000 deal. Like, I mean, you paid $1,000 for an asset that you can use over and over and over again. So there you go. I mean,
yeah, I'm with you, man. 100% recommend on that. We tell clients all the time, you have to have these things in place because people are ready. A lot of people are ready right now.
Yeah,
like they're still looking. So this helps there. Well, good stuff, Paul. Yeah, thanks for coming on. We appreciate you.
Thank you. It was my pleasure being on, man. I appreciate it.
Hey, one last question. What's your favorite book? What book would you recommend?
Oh, man. I guess people ask this, and it's always hard to answer. Gary, this is going to Let's say the boron letters. That's what I'm reading right now. Boron letters. People aren't gonna.
Dude, I actually got that sitting right here.
Yeah, I've read over it like 3 or 4 times, and I'm reading it over again.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. I started asking people at the end of the podcast what books, because I'm making a list of stuff that I wanna read.
Okay. Yeah.
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 Boron letters are good. Yeah, they got that on Amazon. I just ordered it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's cool, man. All right. Hey, well, thanks for coming on. We appreciate you. Everyone listening, thanks for listening. Get out there, crush it, and close some deals.